Hey everybody, welcome back and thanks so much for coming back to my channel. This is D. Maria Reacts and I'm glad to have you aboard. So, I had to come by because, and I'm whispering because my nieces are in the next room sleeping, but I had to pop in and mention this. There's some information that's been going viral today regarding Robert F. Kennedy Jr. His running mate appeared on a podcast by Impact Theory recently, and it's been going viral all day. Well, she basically said how their camp is considering doing something very drastic, and I wanted to stop in and just chat with you. I'll let you know what I think about the goings on. So, first, I'm going to shrink down. I'm going to play that video for you. So, bear with me just a moment.
Impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages. The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us. I mean, the extent by which the sabotage they've unleashed upon us, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways that they have sabotaged us. I really wanted a fair shot at this election, and I believed in the America that a little girl, pledged an allegiance to.
All right, you said that we need a plan. What's your guys' plan if you get into office?
First and foremost, we need to reduce spending. Then we've got to audit our agency spending, our priorities, and we've got to be intelligent about how the government thinks about its role in the lives of everyday citizens. We've got to figure out how to stimulate the economy and increase productivity. You know, I've heard you talk very positively about Bitcoin and AI. And innovation in general. But, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act was supposed to add to stimulus in the economy. CHIPS Act was supposed to add to stimulus in the economy. Neither one has actually done that. Both have resulted in inflation due to such massive amounts of spend. So there's, you know, we have this agency called the Government Accountability Office, who is designed to track and audit this stuff, but they've never been properly looked at or empowered to produce the kind of reports that are honest. I'd imagine that if we put in, you know, real auditors into the government, we'd see some pretty scathing reports about abuses of budgets. There's, you know, let's just talk about military spending alone. We spend an enormous amount compared to any other nation on military, and these security agreements are, you know, if they actually produce security for the country, it'd be one thing, but right now they seem to be antagonizing our enemies. So reduction of military spending is really, really key. The next big budget item is healthcare. And We have too many sick people in this country. We spend $4.6 trillion on healthcare. It's not producing the results we need. So we need to be reassessing how to get our kids and our families healthy, because it is bankrupting the country. That the people running our agencies are the same people that are benefiting from those positions by moving government dollars into corporate coffers. And we need to audit every single one of our agencies starting on day one. It's not going to be an easy task, but it is a task of utmost priority.
And what do you guys think about the amount of regulation that we have now? Good, bad, indifferent?
It's interesting because, Citizens United, the Chevron deference was just overturned by the Supreme Court recently. And basically what the Supreme Court said was that we're not going to defer to the agencies on certain things anymore. We're still going to allow the courts to go through a regular judicial process on issues related to those things, such as, what the EPA regulates, and we're not going to defer to the agencies to make ultimate call by this segment of the population is scary to me.
I hear that. All right. There were rumors going around that RFK was in talks with Trump, that he was in talks with the Harris camp for a potential endorsement to either of them if they could give him, I presume, a spot in one of their cabinets. Is there any truth to it? Would love to hear about that.
Definitely not in talks with Harris. Definitely never have brought up this idea of an endorsement with Harris. Definitely have never brought up a cabinet position with Harris. So those are the MSN just taking something and spinning it in a way that makes, their chosen political group look good. Fake news. With, that being said, we have offered to talk to everybody about what your policies are, who's going to be in your cabinet. Do you want to hear any of our takes on policy and what might work? We've open sourced our platform very proudly. And I will say that Trump has taken genuine, sincere interest in our policies around chronic disease. He takes it seriously. For that reason, I think it behooves us to sit and see if we can actually make some real change. And if that is a unity party, I think that it is something that we absolutely owe to the American public to explore.
What would a unity party look like?
I think it would be on day one making sure that our health, the arm of the government responsible for health, HHS, is directed by someone we can trust, someone without ties to big pharma, someone who understands the foundations of and preconditions of healthy life, somebody who is not going to sell out our children to profiteering.
Okay, when would you guys make that decision? There's obviously huge concerns that you guys are a spoiler candidate. And so I understand there'll be a public-facing message, but I'm very curious how you guys think about that.
We did not start this campaign. I did not put in tens of millions of dollars to be a spoiler candidate. I put in tens of millions of dollars to win, to fix this country, to do the right thing. I will say that Clear Choice, this PAC, this DNC-aligned PAC that was created specifically to take us out, has spent millions of dollars to take us out. They have unfortunately turned us into a spoiler. And we don't want to be a spoiler. We wanted to win. We wanted a fair shot. The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us. I mean, the extent by which the sabotage they've unleashed upon us, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways that they have sabotaged us. I really wanted a fair shot at this election, and I believed in the America that a little girl, pledged an allegiance to. And that is not where we are today, and it's not because of the Republican Party taking us out. It is exclusively because of the Democratic Party taking us out, and I am so disappointed I ever helped them.
Wow. So that is really amazing because they are part of the Democratic Party. So that she is the running mate, Miss Shannon, of RFK Jr. and they are Democrats, and they are talking about their fellow Democratic Party. It is amazing that the current main Democratic Party has become so woke, so far left, so extreme that it's come to this. I think the Democratic Party, they're so broken and split and splintered in so many different ways. One of the big splinterings that was occurring, it centered around, the whole situation with Joe Biden. And there were people who supported Joe Biden and supported him running again for second presidency. And they had great difficulty when basically the coup went forward and were responsible in his stepping down from campaigning. I don't know if maybe they've resolved that within themselves by now. I don't know if they've maybe resolved that within themselves by now, or they're just kind of along for the ride, whatever it takes, so that the Democratic Party can win. Just because there's so much hatred for Donald Trump, they'd rather just go along to get along than just to, bow out and relinquish and allow President Trump to win. But this is new to me. I've never looked at this side of things. And I am not afraid of venturing out and hearing other sides of the story. I know that I support Trump wholeheartedly, and that's not going to change. So, but I don't mind thinking about things in another way, because there's so much you learn from doing that. Um, I want to continue though of listening to what Miss Shannon has to say. So let's pop back in.
I am so disappointed that I helped Chuck Schumer in that Georgia runoff secure a majority. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And it's really devastating. So to answer your question, we are not spoilers. That was never our motivation. We really wanted a fair shot. I think had we had a fair shot, we would have won. I still would love to see in the last 80 days of this election some miracle play out where we get a chance to debate. I don't think they're going to let us. And
that is so unfair. So you have a whole other side that has not been permitted to participate fully in the process. because of the way things were handled with bringing Kamala Harris to the forefront. I watched some of the Democratic National Convention earlier this evening, and it was just amazing. It was the roll call of all the different states and how they were handing over, they were giving over their electorates to Kamala. And everything about the convention, because of what you know about what's going on behind the scenes, it just all seems so scripted and like a movie. It's just unreal because of the way things came about and how Kamala Harris was installed. Everyone else was ignored. Anyone else that wanted to run for that Democratic presidential ticket was basically cast out, and the powers that be, the elite leaders within the Democratic Party, um, disregarded their voters, and they disregarded anyone else who wanted to get a shot at competing. And so it's interesting that this type of thinking is going on behind the scenes with RFK Jr. and his running mate here, Miss Shannon. This is extremely explosive, extremely interesting, and I mean, I can't wait to see how this all turns out. Um, let's jump in and listen to more.
Given this, I think we are taking a very serious look at making sure that the people that have corrupted our fair and free democracy do not end up in office in November. It's hard. I mean, it's really hard, Tom, to say these words because it's also acknowledging how bad things are.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to hear the words. Do you guys see any path to victory at this point?
I mean, technically, if we can stay on the ballots, we've qualified for all the ballots now, which is like an enormous feat. Like you don't understand. The system was designed after Ross Perot to keep this from ever happening again, and we accomplished it. So technically, we could win. We could absolutely win still. The problem is if you censor a candidate, as we've been censored, people don't get a chance to even hear us. There are things that could happen that would still allow us to win in November, even in this environment. And it could, you can't predict the number of variables. But as long as we remain on the ballots, we could win. The question is the risk of a Harris-Walz presidency worth us staying in? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves right now is, do we trust Trump and in his personal sincerity to really do the right thing for our country and chronic disease, balance the budget, end these forever wars? Is he somebody that's going to continue to invite people like Bobby and I into the conversation? Or is he going to fall victim again to the things he fell victim to in his first administration? So we're weighting it all. It's not an easy calculation. We want what's best for this country first and foremost.
Understand that we're connected to something bigger, that spirituality and politics are intertwined. What does your gut tell you about how this is going to play out?
This election is so important, but so is the 2026 governor race in California. And my gut tells me that sometimes you need to go to the source of where all of this stuff is coming from. It's coming from right here in California. It's coming from the influence Silicon Valley and Hollywood has had on the Democratic Party. It comes from this idea that you can manipulate people with lies to get their votes. It comes from this lack of accountability that just seems to continue to spiral. And I think that what my gut tells me right now is that we just have to keep being honest. I got to just keep being honest. I got to keep focusing on what matters the most outside of party lines. I need to focus on a vision that goes beyond November. And if that means that we stay in, and, there's benefits to staying in. If we get over 5% of the vote, we actually establish ourselves as the party. 71% of Americans want a strong third party with a real shot at winning. There's even public funds available if we get over 5% of the vote. So we could get, I think it's like $13.5 million in public funds to keep the party going. And that's, that's worth something. That means that we can position for a real third party election in 2028 where we don't have to go around and spend tens of millions of dollars on ballot access, which means that we can spend all of that time and money campaigning. So, there's two options that we're looking at. And one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
So, as they said, they're at a fork in the road. They're right on the brinks of being able to be established as a third party. But as they said, they run the risk of still dealing with a Harris-Walz presidency situation. I would think, now of course I'm biased because, I'm a Trump supporter. I would think their best route would be to link up with President Trump, and then they together can deal with some of the mess that has been going on the last 4 years, involving the censorship, the lawfare, and all of that. Getting busy to do something to stop that kind of thing from going on in the future. And then once it comes to a point, after 4 years of Trump being in office, when election time comes around again, I wonder, would it still be an option for them to create and branch off into this third party? So I don't know. It seems to me like it makes sense for them, because they are right now going through censorship and lawfare, all these legal woes and things that we're not even hearing about in the media. That's amazing. I knew nothing about this until this very moment. But because they're going through all that, it seems like their better bet would be to team up with Donald Trump and work with the Trump administration for now, and then from a position of greater strength, in 4 years to then venture to, because the they haven't had the option of being able to market their party or to get their viewpoints out there. In my heart of hearts, I think that Trump is going to win the presidency. I don't believe all the polls that are going on that are saying how it's such a tight race and everything. I think that's all theatrics from fake news media. But part of me hopes it keeps going on, because what it will do is it will lull the Kamala Harris supporters into a false complacency where maybe they'll get lax and they won't show up to vote to the extreme that they need to. It will also have the effect, I think, of definitely making sure that Republicans know that we cannot take anything for granted. We have to get out there in big numbers and make this thing happen. Get your kids, your grandkids, your dog, your cat, everybody come vote. Just kidding. I think of RFK, Bobby as she calls him, RFK Jr., as part of the old school Democrats. Like maybe the Democrats that my parents, they're both deceased by now, that my parents supported. This woke, extreme progressive, this radical extent. Kamala Harris is more leftist and more radical than Joe Biden, even. And in my viewpoint, Kamala Harris has had her turn. She's already been president and everything except name, okay? But with Joe Biden being in the state of mind that he's been in these last several years, I mean, because this has been since the beginning, as far as his questionable mental acuity, according to what's being said. So she's been president. If he has not been the one that's truly been operating at a place, at a mindset, at a cognition level to carry out his duties, then that means Kamala has been doing it. And that's why I can't understand how their camp doesn't see it that way. The difficulty with the economy, the difficulty with the border crisis, with the wars that we're involved in, all of that stuff that's been happening, that's Kamala Harris's baby, so to speak. This is all happening on her watch. Joe Biden himself said that she has been present in every room that he's been in. She's always there. She attends these meetings with him. He has not been going solo to these meetings with these, um, big wigs from other countries or whoever, he hasn't been alone. She's been with him every step of the way, being the person that's second in line. As far as I'm concerned, she has had her chance at being president. She has had opportunity where she could have shown herself to really be concerned for the American people and not just be concerned with herself and her being the first female president. I don't care about firsts. I care about the issues of the nation and of my own self being addressed by this next presidency. Kamala won't even give the courtesy of telling the American people where she stands on a lot of these issues. And when she does sparsely speak to these points, she's making statements that contradict her whole political record up to this date. So it's not even believable. when she does sparsely speak to these points, it's not believable because it runs contrary to what she's been doing just the last 4 years as VP, and a VP who undercover has been operating like she's the POTUS. And then when she speaks out, like when she talked about her plans for the economy, as I listen to economists from, you know, watching CNN, even, not just Fox. I know people think all you do is sit up and watch Fox. No, I want to hear from all different sides. And economists across the board, when they're being truthful, they're saying that her plan for the economy for the United States, it's not going to work. Her effort to want to come in and price control, she wants to control price gouging by coming in and controlling the prices, especially starting with groceries. All of that is very suspicious to me because it sounds a great deal like socialism slash communism. We will go further into the depths of dismay and hard times and all the things. So I could sense Nicole Shanahan's and RFK Jr.'s concern about here, and because they have been under, while the Democratic Party has, according to what she said, while the Democratic Party has been attacking President Trump, they've been also attacking RFK Jr. and his camp with some of the same things. Maybe not all the scandal of like sexual impropriety, that kind of stuff. But she mentioned lawfare. She didn't specify how so. But they've been doing the same things to them. I can so see it. I could see it. I could see if it hasn't happened already while I'm filming this, because I'm late. I'm late with the info as far as getting it filmed. Um, but I can so see these two groups collaborating, and then Kamala, they can just forget it. They can forget about it. I hope it goes down that way. I hope they fight back together against what has been going on so they can put a stop to it, so they can get